All right, good afternoon, John Donovan.
Hi, Marty.
Ensconced there in your beautiful new premises in Oceanside, California. I'm up here in Sacramento as we're beginning a Memorial Day weekend heat wave. They're promising 100 degrees by Sunday. I imagine it's not going to get there in San Diego.
No, it would shut the place down.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but go ahead.
It does get warm inland from San Diego.
Sure.
So you go 20 miles inland, they'll probably get 100 degrees.
Right.
A couple times a year. So.
Right. Yeah, because you're on the coast. If I were doing this from San Francisco, we'd probably have fog and it'd be 60 degrees, and
yeah.
So that's for sure. You know, one of the things that came up this week in one of our meetings as a topic for conversation, I said I would raise it, is the challenge that many of us have, and I'm one of them. I'm willing to own this challenge of getting love and sex intertwined, mixed up. A sense that somehow sex is love, and that when I'm in a relationship with somebody, this can become a source of miscommunication, to put it mildly.
Oh yeah.
I know this in relationships that I've been in, that it was a topic I was not willing to really talk about or even ask my partner about. And I can't help but believe this is family of origin trauma related.
Absolutely.
And so I thought I'd ask you about that, see if you have any thoughts or insights to help us navigate this. Many people who are in recovery are learning for the first time in our lives to actually be in a healthy relationship. And if that relationship also includes sex, then we just have that much more work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been told that healthy relationships include a healthy sex life.
Go figure.
Let me I wrote something about this. Let me start off there.
Okay.
And it's called My Child. To a traumatized child, the feeling of elation is a trigger for rejection or pain. The feelings that I am afraid of are the feelings associated with aliveness. Numbness is the avenue to survival. The feelings that accompany connection are the feelings that got ridiculed, humiliated, or chastised. I stuffed these feelings and the experience of the trauma, which were then relegated to my subconscious. Then to connect to anyone on an emotional level became abhorrent to me at this subconscious level. For me to connect to someone on a physical, emotional level, I needed to objectify the other in order not to feel my aliveness or reduce them and myself to parts, cock, tits, pussy, ass. God have mercy.
God have mercy.
God have mercy. And then I wrote, I actually put this in a blog in my webpage. I wrote about the poem. So, the path to living a rich, abundant, fulfilling life is blocked by normalizing the behaviors that are the result of the family of origin dysfunction and or unresolved childhood trauma. The act and method of traumatizing of children is also a culturally sanctioned conditioning hidden in the traditions and mores of the society. Double jeopardy. I'll refer the reader to Alice Miller's Drama of the Gifted Child, as she has outlined the societally sanctioned treatment of his children. The living intentionally material is designed to address the information stored in our subconscious for the purpose of healing that trauma. All memory, conscious or subconscious, is stored in the form of an experience and has a frequency marker that identifies the specific trauma. The trauma held in the subconscious part of our minds is stored there as a reservoir of information, always at the ready to inform the individual of possible harm, and then to direct that individual to take action to avoid recurrence of that particular harm. And will take action because it's part of our survival mechanism and is hardwired into our brains. An example: if part of my stuffed trauma was being punished emotionally or physically, and then hearing my punisher say, "I'm doing this because I love you," I found myself apprehensive or actually backing away at a significant other's expression of love, then not having a reasonable explanation for my response, and then wondering at my sanity or the other person's motives. I've been doing men's work for 28 years. The topic of our sexuality, the times it came up, I can count on one hand. So, yes, we get physical sex mixed up with love. And then it's reinforced societally and biblically, depending on which sacred text you read, as a lower part of our nature, instead of a celebration of our capacity to connect. And then the language we have when we want to diminish somebody, we use sexual terms: son of a bitch, prick, pussy. I won't say the C word. And objectify and become users of each other, and then normalize that behavior in our humor, jokes, conversation.
All in service, I'm thinking, if I'm listening to you accurately, in staving off the actual feeling
Of connect.
I suspect that's the insight here, which you said about the feeling of aliveness versus which I wrote here, numbness as the avenue to survival.
Yes.
And the sense that when my body is feeling thrill, joy, abandon, ecstasy, that this becomes a warning sign rather than an experience of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that in doing work with the groups for the 10 years or so that I've been involved with this, when we work the accountability tree and someone gets in touch with an authentic truth feeling and can even identify it not only by name, but more importantly, by where it's manifesting in the body. And then we ask, okay, now that you're in this feeling state, what do you want? The number of times that a word related to joy shows up spontaneously is also passingly small.
Yeah.
As if there is a taboo, subconscious taboo, to even thinking that's what we want. or allowing is how that's what we want. And yet I suspect that is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in this work, I've created it's my intention to create a world of joy. It's the first word: joy, peace, freedom, community.
Yeah.
And I had to be willing to face this very conundrum. I love this term, double jeopardy. I hadn't heard you use that before. To be willing to look at the double jeopardy here and be willing to go into it in order to transcend out of it into joy, peace, freedom, and community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that the first place to unpack this beautiful blog post that you just shared with us is in the feeling. And I'd like if you'd be willing to just go through that again, maybe in a little bit more granularity, to help people, particularly the newcomer, get this, how these feelings become turned upside down from what we as adults would rationally say, well, of course I want to feel happy and joyful. And yet how subconsciously that's actually a warning sign. And that the alternative then becomes this numbness, and how that's actually got an addictive energy to it in our subconscious. And therefore I get drawn to it as soon as I get close to the near occasion of intimacy and vulnerability and love.
I don't, keep it in the context of our sexuality, getting sex, the physical act of sexuality, mixed up with love. Okay, so I remember being screamed at for being nude as a child. I remember if I was touching myself, I got screamed at for being dirty. What are you doing? And then, well, witnessing violence between my mother and father in the context of the bedroom. And then everything I was told in Catholic school about going to hell around mortal sins, which was, I'm going to get graphic here. I think there's a passage in the Bible where, Old Testament, where a man masturbated, spilled his seed on the ground, and was condemned to hell. Where holy people are celibate. And the holier you are, the more celibate you are. And then the demeaning jokes about women, even guys. And then reaching my teen years, and it was all about sexual conquest. Or did you get any? And it was about bragging, about being a man and a good man. Oh, but if women had sex, they were bad girls. It's like,
there's a catch-22 for you right there.
Yeah, huh? That always confounded me. And my experience of being sexually incest and receiving the resentment, bitterness, contempt from my mother because as a second child, I wasn't a girl. So I got, and this is all energetic because I didn't know, but because I had a penis, I was being tormented and tortured and incested. So this picture I have of myself going through the teenage years as sexual prowess that I needed to perform and brag about. I don't know. I mean, can you see my dilemma? And then being told, don't feel, don't cry, don't be a sissy, estranging myself from my emotional body. And then when I get in a relationship, the first question I'm asked is, how do you feel? And I have no idea. And being then told that I'm emotionally unavailable. And then we get into the bigger picture, patriarchal oppression. And patriarchal has a dick on it, has a penis on it. And I got this internal drive, eat, sleep, sex. That's, I don't know. The best I can say is innate to reproduce. That is a powerful drive in the human condition. And then people saying everything in the bedroom, if you're married, is okay. Every fucking thing. Okay, okay. What's that picture? Okay, but if you're not married, it's a mortal sin. So that set up an expectation of marriage that doesn't exist. It's not there, especially coming into it from the place, from the trauma and the idea I have about my sexuality, and having to apologize for having a penis. And then told that, what was I told? And then getting the idea from the collusion with other men and some women that my penis was the best part of me. So, and then be able to say any of this out loud in the face of what I'm supposed to be, which I don't have an idea what that is. It's right. Just this. And then to admit that I'm impotent or have been impotent, or to admit that I use sex to control people, withhold too much, and to admit that my fantasies about sex are deviant. Holy fuck. It's like, I didn't have a fucking chance. Oh. So yeah, it's a topic that doesn't come up much. Here's some good news though. I've experienced as a man facilitating women groups recently that they feel safe talking to me about their sexual lives and their quandary in enjoying sex or wanting sex, and then dealing with that in their own lives, whether they're married or not married or single. And so I've been told, and based on my experience, women at least talk about this. Men, for the most part, unless it's a joke or a conquest or a bragging, it's really not talked about the angst and the self-image that has been relegated to my subconscious, which I'm defending. I'm one of the good guys. So yeah.
So I think that as you were saying that, what jumped in my mind is that this goes to the original question that was asked, which is this quandary. I think that's the word you use, this quandary that we have. And I have the same quandary. I'm going to be 70 this fall. And I'm still in the quandary. So I'm there with anybody who's still, whatever age we are, seeking to find a place of integration on sexuality and love. But the reluctance to discuss this seems to me to be of a piece with the inability to really even discuss our needs to be loved. And I don't want to confuse the issue or muddy the waters here, but because sexuality is the active side of the survival mechanism. So the passive side is I keep myself alive no matter what. The active side is, and I make more of us.
Yeah.
So that fundamental drive is utterly fundamental, utterly inseparable from all the other ways our physiology and spirituality are designed. You can't not have sexuality. Just like you can't not have love.
Or you cannot not have food.
Right. So it's all up there. And yet, because I was raised in that Catholic tradition too, so I beg forgiveness of anybody listening who wasn't raised in the Catholic tradition. Maybe maybe what you were taught in your religious context about sexuality wasn't quite as black and white as what John and I experienced. But even so, you take out the religious context of that and you just be cultural, and you can see the cultural confusion and the way that this is not discussed on Oprah. So,
right.
So again, not to make that wrong, but just to be a willingness to take a look at this very fundamental element of ourselves that somehow we have colluded as a culture. And I don't know what it's like in Eastern cultures. So I don't know if it's any different in Japan or China or India. But we have decided as a culture that we cannot have a healthy social conversation that is designed to bring us to integration, designed to bring us to wholeness, designed to help that adolescent, that struggling adolescent who is literally seized by sexuality out of the blue. I mean, I remember in a Catholic grade school being told we had a I think it was 7th grade, we had a class about sexuality, and of course it was surrounded by giggling and everybody looking at each other to see who's going to be having what reaction and all that kind of stuff. And most of us hadn't quite experienced the onset of puberty. So we're being told this is going to happen, and it has no meaning.
Yeah. Right.
And then it happens, and then it's like, I can't ask anybody about this.
Right.
I remember my old man, God bless him. So he's in his early 30s at best when I'm heading into puberty, 11, 12 years old. And my dad wants to have the conversation that fathers are supposed to have with their sons. And I knew this was coming because he took me out in our car, just the two of us, on a Saturday morning to just drive around. And it's like, I wanted to be anywhere but in that car.
Right.
With my old man, because it felt utterly embarrassing to even admit to my father that I was having these sexual energies, but for which I didn't even have words yet.
Right.
Except what they taught me in this bizarre, weird sex class in Catholic school.
Yeah.
So I remember telling my father he didn't need to tell me about this because we learned it in school. And my father, it was obvious that he was utterly relieved to be off the hook and not have to do this. So God bless him. He said, well, if you ever have any questions, feel free to come and ask me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the last time I talked to my dad about sexuality until long into my adulthood.
Right.
When he and I could actually have a conversation about that conversation. And so for me, I had the extra twist that I knew early on that I was what we now call gay. I was attracted to boys, and I knew that that was utterly immoral, and I was going to go to hell for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the extra twist of not talking about it because I couldn't be outed. I just couldn't even imagine what the mortification would be. So we all are as teenagers, and our bodies are basically saying, let's have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies are like, they're not in the least bit worried about any of this moral crap.
Right.
They're not worried about this cultural stuff. They're not worried about who looks good and who doesn't. They just want to do it.
Right.
And then in this context of actual life, just want to do it is not going to happen. Or if it happens, it doesn't happen in a context of love and children and procreation and keeping the species going. It's not, none of that is there.
No.
It's just urges that cannot be discussed. And therefore, for me, and I think this goes back to what you were talking about with this split, this feeling split, it was a sense of living in double jeopardy for almost all of my adolescence, of wanting this without reserve. It's like, I want this, and then I can't let myself have it with the same amount of reserve or lack of reserve. It's like, it's what is that little Chinese finger trap we used to play
Right.
with?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
being caught in this thing and not even being able to say, help,
Right.
somebody help me.
Right.
Not even being able to say to my closest friends, oh my gosh, this is what's happening for me and I don't know what to do. What do you think? No.
Right. So.
And so we carry that forward. I carried that forward through for most of my adult life.
Right.
Like, don't talk about it. And I have a belief. I still have a belief. I can contact that belief without working very hard at it, that if I talk about the actual sexual experience of my life to other people, that I will be judged, I will be considered crazy. I will be considered deviant. And of course, I have no evidence if that's true at all. That's just a belief system that I've carried from adolescence with me. So even in relationships with guys that I really wanted to pursue a relationship with, this could not be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and in the great way that this love equals works, I'm attracting guys who have similar deep sexual confusions. Only those are things I could only see on the other side of the failed relationship. Years later, after going through accountability and going, oh my gosh, boy, I had no compassion for that guy.
Right.
Because I had no compassion for myself.
So even I'm having difficulty with the conversation myself.
Salud.
But what I do know is that raising my 5-year-old grandson is that I don't shame and punish for him exploring his body parts, specifically his penis, which he does frequently. And just like it's innocent, and he's at the stage where he thinks words are funny, like poop and fart, and
I still think they're funny.
yeah. And so, and his mother, he's nude a lot. He goes swimming. She bought a small container of water, a trough actually, and he uses it as a swimming pool, and he does it nude. And he there's times he just likes being nude. He'd rather not put on clothes. And there's no shaming or demeaning or told, no, don't do that. It's like, so it's the in my experience in life, this family of origin trauma passing on has stopped. And I'm grateful for that. And it is my intent to be loving, caring, nurturing spouse, father, and participant in my community. And I'm willing to talk with this about anybody that wants to work through it. A lot of times in the men's group, what will come up is jealousy. And that has to do with my idea of my sexuality, jealous. And I found out for myself that my jealousy was simply a projection of my thought about myself sexually onto the woman. In other words, and I'll be graphic and upfront, my thought that she's a slut is I'm a slut. Whatever that context of that word, that the constellation of feeling that goes with that word. And I was actually afraid that she would do what I'm doing, which I couldn't handle. I couldn't deal with that. If she's like me, no, she's not a good person. And in examining this, I got this. At first, it was just, she's not a good person. She's loose, or she's flirty, or whatever the projection I put on her. And I used to call it and imagine, I don't know if it's the green monster. I would be in a relationship for a while. Everything would be fine. We'd talk about old friends and stuff. Then there came a point where I could feel this jealousy coming up. And I thought, oh shit, here we go. And I was helpless. Oh, damn. And I spent a long period of my recovery, middle recovery, looking for books to tell me what was going on. And I could not find a book that explained jealousy. And what I found for myself, it's tied into my own image of myself as a sexual being. And I had an epiphany that it's not her, it's me. I'm thinking she's doing exactly what I'm doing, or thinking like I'm thinking, which means she wants somebody else, because that's what I wanted her, but I wanted somebody else too. Even though, well, at times I wouldn't, and other times, for the most part, in every relationship I was in, I cheated somehow, up until the last, I don't know, 15 years or so. Anyway, so I would, instead of owning my behavior, I would project it onto her, owning my concept of my sexuality and being okay with pleasure, with having sexual pleasure, and not feeling guilty or some subconscious trauma infiltrating and creating objectification or violence or control into the sexual act. So my way out was owning my projections onto her. And I would like to say it's complete, and it's not. And it's something I'm working on.
So the question was, how come? And I don't want to do a why thing, so I'm going to try to find another way to say this. But the question was, I've got love and sex confused, and I'd like to get clarity.
Okay.
So
you have sex and love confused.
Right.
Yes. If you're asking a question, if you're not telling me, then yes, that's where I start.
Right.
And that's where I would start whoever I'm working with. Okay, let's accept that I have sex and love confused. And then what do I want? It is my intent to find balance. It is my intent to revel in my sexuality. It is my intent to be free of judgment. It is mine. I don't know what that is. And that's the beginning. That was the beginning
Right.
of my reconciliation of me as a sexual being.
Yeah, because I think for me, part of the healing comes in creating or coming to some clarity about how these energies work in myself and what do I want, and going always with accountability to what do I want. And because I don't, as I said, you and I said, I don't work with that many people that raise this question in a meeting. I still know the process, and the process is, as you said. So let's start with wherever you are. That's the beauty of accountability. Accountability allows us to start wherever we are and work from there. And work through the feeling body. I have love and sex confused. Does that raise a feeling? Does that raise an energetic response? And then work with it, because for everybody it's going to be different, even if it's the same, because everybody I'm going to say something, see if I can, I'm going to say it. So I have a particular story about all this stuff.
Yes.
And I assume others have a particular story about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when we take out the storyline, the energetics are all pretty universal. I just want to be loved. I have love confused with, in my case, I have love confused with I'm unlovable and therefore I'm alone. And so in my love relationships, I'm always looking for somebody who will prove to me that I'm unlovable and will leave me. And then I can bring in the sex, and the sex will be part of it.
Yeah.
And I will use sexuality to create unlovability.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be confused.
Yep.
But I suspect that my attitude towards my sexuality is embedded in my attitude toward love. And that the reason that I get them, quote, confused, end quote, is because I'm not clear about how my love equals is operating. And I may not have created a new love equals joy, peace, freedom, and community, allows me to now integrate sexuality into joy, peace, freedom, and community by intention, not because I know how to do that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm no expert on this. That's what we have God for.
Yeah. Scott Peck, I believe, in I forget the name of his book. I don't think it was in The Road Less Traveled, but he said love, that chemistry of love, is nature's way of getting two people who are completely incompatible together.
From his
Greg
lips to
Braden,
God's ears.
Greg Braden talked about the 7 Essene mirrors, the mirror of the moment, which is I'm projecting onto you. What I see in you is true about me. And then it's got several other mirrors, and one of the mirrors is the mirror of loss. So, and it has to do with this sexual chemistry. So I look at somebody, and this, I have this chemistry. And he says what's happening is that I see in the other person those aspects of myself that I gave up to survive, like beauty, sensuality, gregariousness, fun,
Yep.
nurturing. So I'm in love with this person because through them, I get to experience those things. And then after the relationship is for a while, then the projection becomes those things I don't like about myself. Both projections are about me. The projections of, oh, aren't you all this? And when I'm around you, I feel safe. You listen to me. You, we're on the same. We like the same things. It is a projection of those things I've lost. I attribute it to the other person. Then the expectation is that she keep giving these to me, just the way I saw it in the beginning, which has nothing to do with her.
Right.
And I've heard myself say, and have been told, you lied to me when I first met you. It's like, okay, there's truth in that. And I had no idea what you were looking at in the first place that you consider now a lie. Well, you've changed. Before you used to. Well, actually, love is blind, and all those things I'm seeing now you were doing then, but I looked past those to your attributes, which were mine that I lost. And now you got to keep up that level of love for me. And then whatever I did or she projected onto me, I got to keep that up. And, you know, we get into doing the laundry and going to work and how do we park the cars, and it becomes.
Oh, and then you have children.
And then you have children.
And then it only intensifies.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you have to be the father I've decided you should be. or the mother.
Right. Or the mother.
That's utterly been my experience. Again, only in reflection, only in the long view of my life. See, every time I've fallen in love with those repressed qualities of myself. And
Yes.
every time those qualities disappeared from that other person. It's like, where'd they go?
You're right.
And it's as if he or she chose to get rid of them.
Right. And it's a
To
betrayal.
hurt me.
Right.
It's all
And it
about
becomes-
me.
Yeah. I'm betrayed you.
Exactly. And like you said, the other person is going through the exact obverse experience. So you're also betraying her.
Correct.
And I suspect that a lot of that fueled the violence of my parents in the earliest years of their relationship.
Yeah.
Is that they're having kids and they're going through this disillusionment process.
Mm-hmm.
And they're Catholic, so they can't get divorced.
Right.
And they can't use birth control.
And they can't use birth control. Yeah.
So they keep having babies, and that just adds to the energetics.
Yeah. So if there's a person listening to this that doesn't have sex mixed up with love,
We'd love to have you on as a guest.
Yeah, we'd love to have a conversation with you and see what the hell we've been missing, or
Right.
what we get, or what is it we don't know.
I say amen.
Okay.
Well, I think that the takeaway is we can talk about these things. They are an intimate part of who we are. We can look at the reluctance to discuss them. We can do accountability to our unwillingness to talk about them. The beauty of the accountability practice is that it's always designed to help me reveal to myself the things about myself I do not know. And my experience is that the preponderance of those things are things I have hidden from myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not just inadvertent things I don't know yet, because
Right.
I am a universe and there's all kinds of stuff I don't know, but there's also stuff that I used to know, and now I don't, because the memory has been repressed for survival purposes.
For survival, and that's the way we're built. We're built with the capacity to remember all experiences, and to have that have to go through that whole thing at any given moment, or to complete a task. We've been designed to put it in a place where it's subconscious, although active in decision-making process, for our safety and survival. It's like, and I mean, we can talk about sports people practicing a move or a skill in whatever sport they're playing, so that they don't have to think about it on the court. They can be in that zone place where their body is full of practices, and their body knows how to move based on the conditions of the game. And they don't have to think about, am I going to go around this guy? If I'm thinking basketball right now, am I going to go around this guy? I'm going to fake this way. I'm going to do this. They just happens. And it's nothing, I want to say new. It's from the practice and their intent to win, or to make a basket, or be a proficient athlete,
or to excel, to do it better this time than I did last time.
Right. To grow. And I take that in the context of, who am I? What do I want? It is my intent to live my life authentically and express myself authentically. Okay, so the practice is, I'm projecting on you, talk about my experiences of objectification of women, because in my owning those isms that are part of the trauma that manifest in isms, racism, sexism, classism, and own them. I've done this before on the podcast, and this was in relation to racism. This one is in relationship to sexism. I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, I'm a classist, I'm a bigot. And then once you own something, then you're capable of shifting, moving, reframing. If I didn't own that I'm sexist, then the sexist behavior, which is coming from my family of origin trauma and my confusion about my own sexuality, projected out onto women, which is sexist. Well, hands down, I'm sexist. I mean, I didn't stand a chance based on what I just said. So when I own it, okay, then I can start working on that internal self-loathing, self-hate due to my own gender or due to the actions from me as a male, and sort it out, start sorting it out.
And just again, for the person who may be listening for the first time or the first few times, because John's been doing this for 25 years, he may not remember because it's now become natural to him. But when we own our sexism, we own our racism, we own our meanness, we own our violence, we're doing this without judgment or blame.
Right.
We're doing this, that's why we call this practice accountability. It's my ability to account for, to name, to list my behaviors, not for the purpose of making myself wrong, but for the purpose of giving myself conscious choice.
Yes.
So when John says that, he's not owning this for the purpose of beating himself up, although the words, if we don't know this process, then the words can sound like that, because that's what we learn. We use these words to harm other people. And we're always doing this in service of our original family trauma, which is to keep me away from the dangers of vulnerability and intimacy.
Right.
So I learned to identify these behaviors, which in the past I would have labeled with negative judgments or critical judgments, in order to create something different. If I don't know what I'm doing, I can't possibly bring it into the light and ask God to help me change it.
Correct.
And I'll just keep repeating it over and over and over again.
Right.
And
And
I you know, through most of my life, I was able to create a whole different range of people I blame for it.
Yep.
Because I kept getting in these relationships and they failed. And, you know, what's wrong with him?
Yep.
So I'll find somebody else to blame. Well, as soon as I'm willing to own that's my behavior, that's my belief, and I'm willing to look at it without making myself wrong, everything changes. Because this is the act of love, to own my behavior, to be accountable without blame or judgment, is how I learn to love myself. It's what you were saying earlier about Solomon, your grandson. It's like, no blame, no judgment for his behaviors.
Right.
Well, that's a gift we can give ourselves.
Yes.
In fact, that's what recovery really is. We recover the capacity to love ourselves unconditionally. And that includes our willingness to take a look at sexual issues with the same commitment to no blame, no judgment.
Yep. I just had a memory come up. I was dating a woman. I was talking about a conversation about masturbation, and I referred to it as self-abuse. And where she came from, she goes, John, that's concerning to me that you call masturbation self-abuse, because I don't see it that way. And I'm like, where the hell did she come from? It's like, what? What do you mean it's not self-abuse? Well, in her context, it was simply self-pleasure, which, like, there must be something wrong with her, because that did not fit my paradigm. I was being a good guy by saying I abused myself and owning, but
Yeah, and I want to own, as soon as you said self-pleasure, I felt a lurch in my stomach.
Yep, there you go.
It's like,
So,
oh my God.
yeah, hellbound. That's
Here we are.
hellbound.
Here we are.
And those people that like these sins, they got a special place in that place of hell.
Yeah.
Immense torture and yeah.
Well, but it is an act of torture to
What?
to make it self-abuse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
The actual hell is in the moment right now. It's in the present reality, current reality. This is hell, as compared to being in heaven, which is self-pleasure.
Right. Well, I don't know. Here's the irony of this. I don't know how frequently priests could condemn this and call it self-abuse. I don't know that it stopped anybody from masturbating.
Well, that don't stop people from issuing out punishment.
Right.
It's like doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And if this didn't work, we'll just try the same thing harder in a different way to make, and then people will listen. We'll create a 25 to life clause, and then we'll get people to stay out of jail. Well, it just filled them up.
Yep.
To capacity, because there's so many of them in there doing 25 to life that they have no room for the guy like a measly five to life or 5 years. Or
well, the good news is that hell has no limits.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
When I was a freshman at my Jesuit high school, my all boys Jesuit high school, they took us into the chapel for a retreat one time, and they brought this guy in to do the retreat. And he was, I forget exactly, I don't remember anything but this. He was talking about crucifixion. And he was talking about the physical experience that Jesus had as a nail was inserted into his wrist and the hammer and the skin split and the nerves and all this kind of stuff. And he goes through this incredibly graphic description. And he goes, and gentlemen, every time you masturbate, you are holding the hammer with that Roman soldier, driving that nail into Jesus's flesh. Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one example.
Yeah, it's my life experience. It's a great paradigm of the.
I heard that too. It wasn't a Jesuit priest, but I heard it from a priest.
So we all have our version of this if we have this confusion / guilt / double jeopardy experience with sexuality. And I'm grateful to you for being willing to talk about these things. And there's no way to talk about them without being self-referential. And I wish we could have an abstract conversation, but I don't think that would have any particular value.
Yeah, like one of those primer readers, see John masturbate, see Dick masturbate, see Jane masturbate. It's like,
I didn't get that version in first grade.
Yeah.
Right, and in our culture, we'll make a joke out of that.
Yeah.
or we'll make pornography out of it.
Right. And pornography being one of the most lucrative industries on the planet.
Drugs and pornography, man, we're in the wrong business, my friend.
Yeah, no. Okay, Marty.
Well, as always, John, we'd like to leave you with the last word. If there's anything, any way to bring this conversation to you pardon the pun, happy ending.
You are whole. This is what I was told. You are whole, perfect, and complete. You are the masterpiece of this cosmos, of the 13.5 billion years of getting ready so that you could be. There is nothing wrong with you. Only those things that you were told that were lies. You were lied to about who you are. You were lied to about how it works, and you've been doing your best to make that work. Yeah. I just heard myself say that to myself.
And
Wow.
what I heard is, and that's an act of glory.
Mm-hmm.
The universe has created an act of glory in each of us.
Yes.
And
Revel.
has created sexuality so that the glory will be continued and expanded.
Yes, and that you could experience yourself in extreme joy and pleasure.
Exactly. Well, before we wrap up, I want to let anybody who's listening for the first time or the first few times know that if you'd like to participate in actual accountability practice meetings, John facilitates a meeting Saturday mornings at 8:30 Pacific time. I facilitate a meeting Monday evenings at 6:30 Pacific time. There's another Thursday night meeting facilitated by one of our colleagues at 6:30, and there's a men's meeting facilitated by yet another one of our colleagues on Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m. So stay tuned for at the end after the podcast is over, and information on how to contact me or John to get an invitation, because all these meetings are currently being held on Zoom by invitation. Please feel free to shoot us a note, and we'll be happy to invite you, give you the key to the kingdom to join us in an accountability meeting and learn how to do this work for yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Marty.
So as always, thank you, John. And I intend for us both to have a wonderful and reflective Memorial Day weekend.
I'm on that boat.
There you go. See ya.
Okay.